24 hours. 24 hours before the market opens, and we see massive buying pressure on Bitcoin. We have news that more people are going to be buying Bitcoin this week. We have some pretty interesting news from the tariff front as well. I want to go through some of the cryptos that I think could do really well during this bull run and still will do really well moving forward. If you don't mind, hit subscribe so you can see future videos just like this. If you want tickets to the Bitcoin conference and you haven't gotten them yet, it's in Vegas. It's about a month away. You can get 10% off with my link underneath the video. The prices keep on going up as you get closer to the conference. So if you want to check that out, there is a link underneath the video. Again, 10% off with my code or with my link. Also, if you want to trade crypto, there's a link underneath the video to BitUniX, Blowfin, WEEX, BTCC, and CoinW. A lot of these give you deposit bonuses like BTCC, which gives you a 10% deposit bonus on all deposits above $500. And you get lower trading fees when you sign up. There's no KYC and you don't need a VPN. I really like trading. I really like leveraging as opposed to going into very, very small caps that people think have so much upside. The fact is many of those just die off, and there's a lot that you can't research that you don't know. Like there's even an altcoin, a top 100 altcoin this month that just rug pulled. So I would rather leverage and use leverage on multiple exchanges and trade something like Bitcoin or Ethereum or Solana rather than try to dive real deep into those small cryptos. But we will talk about some large caps later in the video. They have some news and I think could do well. Now, Bitcoin's doing fairly well today. Sitting at 94,000. We pushed all the way up to 95.7 just a few days ago, breaking above this $95,000 resistance. And we have less than 24 hours before we start getting more inflows or outflows, I suppose, from the ETFs. But as you can see last week, we saw nearly $3 billion in inflows from the Bitcoin ETFs. And we also got word from Michael Saylor that essentially he's hinting at that they're going to buy more Bitcoin this week. Stay humble, stack sats. Sent this morning. On Sundays when he talks about this chart, that means that on Mondays he's going to be announcing some purchases. So last week, they bought some Bitcoin. I think it was right around 6,000 Bitcoin. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. But most likely going to be stacking some more tomorrow. We also know that there might be a little bit of a fire lit under his butt now because 21 Capital also going to be buying some Bitcoin relatively soon. They're going to try to get their hands on 42,000 Bitcoin, which is worth, at the time that they posted about it, I think it was worth around $3.5 billion. Now 42,000 is darn near close to 3.9, $4 billion even. It gets more expensive, so hopefully they're accumulating now. We also know that there are other companies as well that are buying Bitcoin, right? That are accumulating, smaller companies. You know, when you have 50 small companies, it might equal one big company buying Bitcoin. We also have heard over the last week from several different companies like Bitwise and Coinbase that sovereign wealth funds are also buying Bitcoin. They're swallowing up Bitcoin. So the amount of Bitcoin on exchanges continues to go down. And eventually, this causes the price to go up. That's what we've seen over the last couple weeks. Really, just like a week ago, we were at 85,000, 84,000. Now we're sitting at 94,000. So 1 week can make a big difference. You know, I like to say 24 hours because sometimes people need a little fire lit under them. Like, hey, I don't have forever to stack Bitcoin under 100,000 or under 80,000 or under 30,000 or 20,000. It seemed like we had forever during the bear market, but then all of a sudden the price moves up and we never get down to those prices again. And yeah, tomorrow we could see some large inflows. We could see some large announcements. We could see some large purchases that make the price go up. And with tariffs too, you never know what's going to happen with Bitcoin's price either, because we get news every day that causes the market to go up or down 3%, 5%, 10%. Like this, U.S. holding daily conversations with China over tariffs, according to the U.S. Agriculture Secretary. Now, there's some disagreement whether China and the U.S. are talking. China says no. U.S. says yes, we are. But just be ready. There's going to be volatility. We also have earnings this week. Visa, Starbucks, Microsoft, Meta, Robinhood, Amazon, Apple. A lot of large companies are going to be, I'd even mention like 5 other large ones like McDonald's and MasterCard and SoFi and UPS and PayPal. I'd even mention those, but there are even more companies than that all announcing earnings this week. So the analysts are going to be in overdrive analyzing how this affects the market. Hedge funds are going to be repositioning within crypto and adding money to crypto, taking money out of crypto. So be ready for volatility. PCE is also this week, April 30th. So that's a Fed's preferred inflation gauge. We're going to see, is inflation reaccelerating or is it dead? Of course, the Fed is going to be thinking about tariffs. So even if inflation comes in lighter than expected, they still might be worried about tariffs affecting inflation moving forward. But we continue to see good news for altcoins. I think we're in this kind of limbo where we don't know how much tariffs are going to affect the market or affect the economy or affect business. But as resolutions come up, as more trade talks take place, I think people will gain confidence and go more risk on. And we've seen even crypto go risk off with Bitcoin dominance continuously spiking up. Of course, there were a couple wild swings, like in December, where we went from almost 62% dominance to 55% dominance. And there was a huge altcoin rally around this time. But as you can see, it went right back up. So Bitcoin dominance is really high right now. But I think there could be a case for a crazy alt season. I am very heavy on Bitcoin. Like 90% of my crypto portfolio is Bitcoin. But there are lots of altcoin products coming soon, just like this. The SEC approved ProShares Trust XRP ETF for public launch on April 30th, which this is not a spot ETF, but I think there are going to be spot ETFs coming for some of these altcoins. But there's also going to be staking for ETFs. Like you're going to have an ETH ETF that you get 4% yield on, or 3%, or whatever it is. There are going to be more covered call ETFs like what you see with MSTR. You could see that with other companies as well, other cryptos. Or they're selling volatility, and you could get a large yield on that because crypto is so volatile. If Bitcoin rips and easing comes, such as quantitative easing, we could see dominance fall. And right now it's got a long way that it could fall. Even if it stays above 50%, for example, that would be a drop of 14%. We saw a massive altcoin rally when we saw a 7% drop. So imagine double that. Bitcoin still stays half the market. And this could just be for a short time, right? It could just, we could just pop down if we go more risk on, and then it could come back up. But we could see massive moves, even on some of the large caps, 2 to 5x moves. Mid and smalls will get degens that ape into them, right? That want the next fancy crypto that does whatever. A lot of money will be made. But I don't even think you have to get into the degen stuff. I don't think you have to even get into mids or smalls. I don't think this bull cycle will necessarily be like the past where everything pumps. I think people have gone more wise to the fact that the best cryptos are the ones that you want to put money into. I don't think they're just going to spread money over the top 100 and then everything's going to go up 4 or 5x. Of course, I think a rising tide lifts all boats. So I think most things will move up. Just some will be the winners to a much more significant amount. Honestly, if I was looking at the top cryptos to invest in now, and we'll get into maybe some smaller ones later. But again, I don't think you even necessarily need to do it right now because so many of these are beaten down or just have stayed so low over the last year or a couple of years. Ethereum, just super easy. If you want something that's not Bitcoin, which at this point I might just buy Bitcoin instead of Ethereum. But if you want a better return, right, for Ethereum to hit all-time highs, it would have to go up 150%. So Bitcoin could be nearing $250,000 in Ethereum if it just kept pace, would be just around previous all-time highs. And it was at 4,000 or 4,200 this cycle. Not even that long ago. It sounds insane, But let's look at the last 1 year. We're sitting at $4,000 back in December. That's insane. So yes, it can move up pretty quickly. Moving down from there, XRP also was up significantly from where it is now. Like it was up. I guess we can look at the last 1 year. $3.30, now at $2.20. So, I mean, 50% move would take it up to all-time highs. So, yeah, I mean, even here you can see pretty nice jump there. It can move pretty quickly, right? Very good community there. And the team is very tied in with the Trumps. Solana, most activity still takes place on Solana. Also, like you can see, such aggressive movement. It's up over 50% in 3 weeks. So volatile. And yeah, it would move up 100% to new all-time highs. From there, maybe you look at Cardano even, right? Like to previous cycle all-time highs, which I'm not sure it'll get there. I haven't seen a lot of core news about Cardano, or a lot of news specific to Cardano, but you saw it start to rally after the Trump election, going from 34 cents all the way up to $1.15. I mean, that right there is a 4x, but to previous all-time highs of $3.10, you'd be looking at over a 4x. I don't have anything in Cardano, to be clear, though, right now, but I do have some of these other altcoins, just to be fully transparent. Sui has done so well. Like, look at the last month. Look at the last week on Sui. It was $2.10. It was $2 right here. It's up 80%. 80% over the last week is insane. Yeah, Sui is definitely one of the winners this cycle. So, I mean, just look at like the top 10 altcoins, and I think half of them are pretty decent. Now, to be clear, I am much heavier in Bitcoin than I am in these altcoins. I'm like 90% Bitcoin. Part of that is because Bitcoin's performed so well versus these altcoins. Naturally, my Bitcoin portion of my portfolio has gone up. But also, I have not gone fully risk on into altcoins since last cycle. Like during the bear market, I continued to accumulate Bitcoin, which the Bitcoin dominance chart has been straight up and to the right. So it's actually been a really good decision. But I do have allocations to these altcoins for the most part. Most of these altcoins I have allocation to. And I also have leverage trading positions on them as well to be able to get a little bit more skin in the game. But yes, I do think they could perform well. Part of the reason I'm not heavier is because I do have a significant amount, and I'd rather take something that's a little bit lower risk like Bitcoin than something that's a little bit higher risk. Now, I don't think that Bitcoin's necessarily going to perform quite as well as altcoins if we go into a bull run, but also it won't draw back if we go into a bear market. Also, when you buy throughout the bear market and you want to rotate, it can be difficult because of tax reasons, right? Let me know your thoughts on all this underneath the video. Again, if you do want to trade crypto, there are links underneath the video to BTCC, WEEX, Blowfin, BTCC, and CoinW. I really do appreciate it. I'll see you all in the next one.